Welcome to the channel, guys. In today's video, we're talking about the 5 things I love most about my 2022 Subaru WRX. This is a VB WRX. I've had this for about 1.5 years now, and I know everybody under the sun makes these videos. I'm gonna pick 5 things that are not commonly talked about. I watched basically every 5 things I love about every other WRX generation, trying to find 5 unique things, so this video would be actually incredibly interesting. Some of the stuff is pretty straightforward, but we're gonna get into it. We might have some honorable mentions, but we're going to talk about some less conventional things that less like non-super WRX owners have said, let's say. I mean, this is my 3rd WRX and I've been driving WRXs for 8 years now, so I might have something interesting to say, but let's get into it. Number 1 on our list is going to be maybe even the most controversial one to start with, whether you're a new owner or you own one of these or it's your 5th one, I don't know. The number 1 on our list is how customizable these cars are and how much you can do to the exterior. And it is so powerful that even just me saying that is going to create the most like Reister warrior comments in the comment section of this video. But in reality, the WRX, it's not an uncommon car and you have lots of parts that are very similar. But you can take a WRX and you can make it entirely your own with your own combination of parts, with your own color combinations. You can do so much to this car to make it yours. You know, obviously, if you watch my channel, I've done similar things to my WRXs because there's a certain style that I like. But you almost have unlimited options in what you're doing. You have so much freedom on building this car and making it your own. And you have so much freedom that people have such negative opinions about certain mods because they've run their car one way versus the other, and you just have more variation than any other platform that exists, in my opinion, on the car market, and that's just because there's such a robust aftermarket community with this car. Next on our list is the fact that you can have fun with this car in any setting. So this one might sound a little dumb, but the reason most of us buy these cars are for functional reasons, or that's why we get into them. I obviously was into WRXs at a very early age, but the first WRX that I ever bought was coming out of a rear-wheel drive sports car, and it applied functionality on top of this sports car vibe. But what it actually has allowed me to do is go out and have fun with this car when most other car owners have to put their car in their garage, meaning if it snows, I get excited because I can rip this around in the snow. If it rains, I get excited because I can do donuts. If it is super hot, I can still take this car and not get too much heat soak because I only have a 4-cylinder engine. There's just so many scenarios where I can take this car out and have fun and not be worried about it because of its all-wheel drive system, because you have the ability to put pretty dang wide wheels on the car. I'm running 9.5s, which isn't even that wide, but a 9.5-inch width wheel is still pretty dang wide, especially on an all-wheel drive system with decent tires. But it adds this whole nother level of fun where you can have adventure and sports car all in one thing. With my last WRX, which was tuned, every time it snowed, I would go out and rip the car, and literally like the most throttle that car ever got was when there was snow on the ground and I was just like absolutely having fun. A lot of these like synonyms associated with these types of rally cars like hooning and, you know, hoon or whatever you want to do, with all these synonyms or verbs about using these cars are all, you know, derivatives of this car is fun at any given time. And honestly, if you put me on a stand at, you know, in front of a jury and said, what's the #1 reason to buy a WRX or an STI? The first answer is it is an all-round capable sports car in any condition in a way that no other car can compete with. And I'll actually die on that hill because I think there are a few other cars with all-wheel drive systems that can compete and out-compete maybe on a track, but you lose when you're thinking about your GTR or your RS3 when it comes to going out and driving in the snow, because it's much more expensive to work on, where if you hit a little bit of a snow bank and you damage a little bit of your bumper, it's a lot easier to work on this car than it is a very, very expensive car. So I think it is truly the ultimate I can do anything anywhere with this car. Who would have thought I'd be on the rear of this car for this video? I honestly wasn't even sure I was going to end up here, but I decided that number 3 would be an extremely unique one for me. And this is specifically exhaust related. So I started driving a Genesis Coupe. That was my first like sporty car. And one of the beautiful things with the Genesis Coupe is you had massive exhaust cutouts or housings, exhaust housings. So you were able to very much do the whole GTR thing. And if you can't tell, a GTR is pretty much my favorite car. One of the nice things with the GTR is they have massive exhaust tips, and I think it looks really, really nice. One of the beautiful things with at least the VA and VB WRX is you have fairly large and aggressive exhaust housings. I don't know if you can tell with my car, but I have 4-inch staggered double wall tips on my car. And when you're in person, as somebody that's been around the car market forever, one of the few things that really stands out about a car, and I think a lot of us can agree with this when they go and actually look at cars, you can do a lot to the body of a car. You can make it your own. You can put customizable things. You can, it's pretty easy to make everything look pretty good with a little, not a lot of adjustment. One of the few things that I've always had gripes about that's really hard to do is have really good exhaust tip fitment that complements the rest of your vehicle. Now you might say this is dumb, but you can run very large exhaust tips, which I will die on the hill, thoroughly. I honestly think if you were to put this car, and I gotta do this at some point, next to another car, next to another WRX, and I ran 4-inch double wall staggered versus 3-inch or 2.5-inch or 3-inch single wall or something, the difference in the profile of the rear of this car is massive. I also honestly think that the profile that when I'm at a car show or something like this with my exhaust and what that actually shows relative to every other brand car there, if you care about the visual side of this car and that whole game of owning a car, it makes a big deal. I know that this is going to be very split. 50% of you guys are going to be like, that's the stupidest number 3 under the sun. I completely understand, because there's other aspects of the whole automotive world that I find stupid, but it's little things like that, maybe it's the engineer in me, where you have perfect tolerancing, perfect fitment, and it looks so aggressive, it makes such a big difference. Now I've promised every one of these is going to be fairly different, so number 4 is a little bit more creative, but I think it's one that we don't talk about enough. The WRX is the perfect starter car for an enthusiast because it is an extraordinarily easy car to work on yourself, minus doing spark plugs or some internal engine work. The WRX is one of the easiest cars to learn every aspect of maintenance, minus the spark plugs, on a car. Now, I don't think enough people do their own maintenance, and I will be honest, I haven't done the oil changes in this car yet. I'm going to. It's like the only time I've ever paid for an oil change in my entire life of owning cars, but don't hold me to that one. The short answer is, if you own a WRX, you should be doing all of the maintenance yourself. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, whether it's time efficient, whether it saves you money, whether it doesn't save you money, whatever it is, you should do it to understand the car and start building the skill set of doing it. Building the skill set of basic maintenance turns into being able to install all your parts yourself, and installing all your parts yourself and doing your own maintenance turns into being able to diagnose problems and be more educated about the car, which turns into this building skill set that you will infinitely use in your car journey if you buy cars like WRXs or want to buy faster, cool cars. Being mechanically inclined is incredibly important, and it actually only starts with changing your oil, your engine filter, your cabin air filter, checking your oil, checking your coolant. Being responsible for all these things slowly builds up your arsenal of knowledge. The WRX, again, I cannot emphasize enough, is one of the easiest cars to start doing that on. And I've done this on a lot of cars, right? I mean, this is like, I'm a mechanical engineer by trade. So the short answer though is, get into the hood, get underneath the car. Subaru is extraordinarily good at designing cars that are designed to be worked on. Minus the boxer engine, spark plugs, and a few things that you as an amateur wouldn't be touching. The rest of their stuff is pretty well thought out. If you stuck this far, we're gonna end with number 5 as being a super interesting one in my opinion. Again, way off the beaten path. It's something that I've mentioned years ago about the WRX, but this is something that's hammered even further home with the VB WRX. That's that the 2022 Plus WRX is the best vehicle that you can get into and drive and understand where your desires are in the realm of the automotive space. What do I mean by that? Eventually, you're gonna find what you're into. You may already know, you might be still, kind of evolving in that journey. I would honestly say that if you've owned cars for less than a decade, there's no way to tell. I'm a decade into driving cars and I still just feel like I'm finding exactly what I want out of a car, right? Well, the short answer is you have to have experiences with certain cars to appreciate different aspects of the vehicles, and that will guide you into the place that you want to be long-term in the automotive space. Whether you like JDM, whether you like American muscle, whether you like fast cars, whether you like cars that can track really well, whether you want cars that just hold high speeds around corners but aren't as fast, whether you like light cars, heavy cars, these are all aspects that culminate into the car you drive. Now, there's no way for you to know that without owning many, many cars. One of the beautiful things about the WRX is you can cross out almost every one of those characteristics with this car. You can have all-wheel drive versus some type of two-wheel drive, which is incredibly definitive in which kind of cars you go for, right? You can have something that can drive and have fun in all seasons, right? You can go from making not a lot of power, but having a car that can corner really, really well, to making a lot of power, and also making a lot of power with a car that can corner and get around track stuff even better. Think coilovers and other aspects. You'd be amazed what a little bit of suspension work can do to this ride. So you can experience basically all of your power stuff, all of your handling stuff, your ability to use the car year round, the difference between all-wheel drive and, let's say, rear-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, but it's really all-wheel drive or rear-wheel drive, and how important that is. You know, as somebody that went to all-wheel drive, it will be very hard for me to ever get away from that. Yes, I'm going to have a Supra. Yes, I'm going to have some more rear-wheel drive cars, but ultimately I've already figured out that my long-term goals are all-wheel drive cars. I want an R35 GTR. A lot of that came from owning this car. Yes, I wanted an R35 for so long, but it was like between that and a few other cars, I really like the R8. Also doesn't really count because it's kind of all-wheel drive, but you kind of get what I mean. Like, it was like I drove the all-wheel drive and I was like, wow, it's amazing to be able to put down all this power and not have to think about it with some good wheels, and not have to think about like massive rear tires and massive rear wheels and all that kind of stuff. All-wheel drive will be with me forever. I also realized that I don't really have a love for these cars when they're super slow. So making them a lot faster is really important. But one of the critical things for me is I also realized over the last 7 years that American muscle cars have zero interest to me. The idea of a car being very fast but not being able to corner or have all the fun that is like putting G-force on your body, which in my opinion is probably more adrenaline driving than going straight away fast, because you can really push this car in a corner. And if you don't agree with me there, you haven't gone around a corner fast enough in a car capable of doing it, right? There's not a 0 to 60 that can be more fun. And again, I've done the whole Tesla thing. I've been in very fast 0 to 60s. Nothing compares to hitting a corner at 85, 90 miles an hour that should be taken at 20 miles an hour. Don't do that in the US, do that in Mexico or somewhere where that's allowed. But you get what I mean. The short answer is, like, this car is defined that I don't want an American muscle car, right? It's been very clear. I probably will never own one. Yeah, they're attractive because they're fast, but the idea of having like a Mustang GT just isn't that exciting because I can't use it in the way that I enjoy running these cars. So number 5 is a clear winner for me. It will give you a definition of what you want out of sports cars, just in general, or what you don't want. You can experience a lot of those things in the entire spectrum with this platform. An honorable mention, and this is only for the guys that have stayed here, or the guys and girls that have stayed here. Number 6 is the community. I've said this time and time again, this community is so awesome. Before I keep talking about it, if you got to number 6, please let me know in the comment section below. Just say number 6 or something like that. I like to know who stays here for this long through the videos. And when I ask you guys to do this, I remember who you are. And I promise that definitely doesn't come into count when I do giveaways. Like, if I have an extra slot for a giveaway and I know and I recognize someone's name, I promise they might not get chosen. Something to think about, but just let me know that you're here that far. But the community, just let me know that you've been here for this long. But the short answer is the community is amazing, and the WRX and STI and just Subaru community in general is one of the most accepting and open communities, and one of the communities that, like, one of the most helpful and you know, progressively educational communities that you're going to find. People are always open to teaching about the cars and being constructive. Yeah, sure, there's some bad people in the community, but it's nothing like some of the other communities. Like, you can just trust me in that this community is amazing, and it is a very healthy place to be in the sports car world. And sometimes I would even say it's worth buying the WRX, even if you're not sure. Even if you're not sure what you want for a sports car, buy the WRX just to hear from the community and be part of it, to figure out and get some guidance from them on things that you can do with this and things of places that you can transition to. The community is awesome. I'll see you guys in the next video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and thank you for those of you guys that commented and let me know how far you stayed in the video. Appreciate you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one.